The crypto market is dumping, and many influencers are already calling the top. But the big question remains, is it really over for Bitcoin? Hello everyone, Richard here and welcome to a new weekly overview here on AltCryptoTalk. Today, I'll be going over 5 charts in a detailed manner to reveal the answer. So let's get started, and of course, don't forget to smash that like button if you like such content. Starting with BTC weekly chart from a moving average perspective. On this chart, we've got the 50 SMA, simple moving average, and the 100 SMA marked in red. And as you all know, basics 101, as long as we are above the moving averages, the overall trend will remain bullish. And this is a perfect example because every time BTC touches the 50 SMA, we expected or we saw the next big impulse movement. Here's also a good example. And we are currently retesting the 50 SMA. That's why we'll be expecting one more impulse movement towards the 150, 160. It depends on the momentum. But of course, in parallel, if we break below it from a weekly perspective, I mean a weekly candle close below the 50 SMA, we'll be expecting the bearish trend or the bearish cycle to start. Here's also a good example of the start of the bearish cycle. After we closed a weekly candle below this SMA, we expected this movement. Thus, as long as we are above the 50 SMA, it's not the top yet, right? And we can still expect one more impulse movement, maybe resulting in a new all-time high before we finally break below the 50 SMA. If you take it one step further and zoom into daily time frame, every time we broke below this area, which is the break of the 50 SMA and the 100 SMA, every time the 50 SMA becomes below the 100 SMA, it means that we are in a correction phase, right? And if you go to the left, we can clearly see that every time we broke below it, we got stuck inside a big consolidation. And this is also one more example. We broke below this area, the 50 SMA is below the 100 SMA, we started a flat range, a correction phase, and then after we broke above this range, we started the next impulse. We are currently exactly here. The 50 SMA broke below the red SMA or the 100 SMA, and we are currently in a correction phase. Once we break above this area, this consolidation, we will start the next phase. Thus, if you combine the two, the weekly and the daily, weekly we are still above the 50 SMA, so we are still bullish. On daily, it's just a correction phase. So as long as we are above the 100, 105, we can still push higher. And of course, the confirmation would be a break above the range. This is from a moving average perspective. Let's dive into the price action perspective. Let's remove these ones to focus on the price itself. Weekly time frame, this is a very nice example, a very interesting, if you want, price action that no one is talking about. Every time we broke below a low, we started a consolidation, made a fake out before the next impulse started. And this is also happening here. A low formed, broke below it, formed a fake out before the next impulse movement started. So yes, from a market structure 101 perspective, if we break a low, we will start a whole bearish trend, right? But this is not the case for BTC weekly chart from a price action perspective, especially that we also have this rising wedge pattern that formed after we had these two previous fake outs. So this is adding a little bit of extra confluence because now we have a trend line, which we previously haven't, and we also have the 100K round number, also the structure here. So this is a very strong example, which I call a trio retest of 3 rejection zones: the 100K, the structure, the lower bound of the rising wedge. This is why this is a very strong example, which lines up perfectly if you want with a 50 SMA. So even if you have a break below the 50 SMA and this is still holding above the 100 and above this 90-100 support and the wedge pattern, we are still overall bullish. From a price action perspective, for the momentum to shift from bullish to bearish, we need to see a break below the 90 or a new low to form here and then break below the low. In this case, only then we'll be expecting the bearish phase to start. But let's take it step by step. We are still bullish in a ranging market from moving average perspective, daily time frame. Here, even if you break below this low, and the 50 SMA, we are still in this fake out phase, and we can expect one more impulse movement towards the upper bound of the wedge pattern, towards the 140 or even 150. Again, it depends on the momentum. Two charts that can help us also feel the overall market. The first one is USDT dominance, and as you all know, it's in percentage, and every time USDT dominance goes up, it means that people are not trusting the crypto market or are pessimistic. They are shifting or converting their assets, crypto assets, into a stable coin like USDT. Of course, you can also check USDC dominance and other stable coins, but in my opinion, it's all the same. Since USDT is the biggest market cap, I can always keep an eye on it. So you can clearly notice that from USDT dominance daily or even weekly charts, we are currently around a very strong resistance zone. Also the 5 round number, 5%. 5 to 5.25% is a very strong resistance zone, and we are currently retesting this area. As long as BTC is above the 100k, also above the 50 SMA, and USDT dominance is below the 5.25, this is just a deep correction. Of course, bearish for crypto, bullish for USDT dominance. Of course, in parallel, if USDT dominance breaks above this area from a daily perspective, which means closing a full momentum daily candle above it, not just wicks like this. Okay, if you close a big daily candle above this area, we'll be expecting further upside. But for now, we'll be expecting some reaction here, a rejection. Zooming into H4, we can clearly see this range in a cleaner manner, and we are currently approaching the upper band of this range. Again, as long as we are below this area, we can expect this. For the bears to take over medium term, a break below the 4.97% is needed, and then for the bears to take over long term, which would be extremely bullish for crypto, a break below the 4.7% is needed. But for now, we are still good. It's not the top yet. Last but not least, total market cap, which is also very similar to BTC chart, right? Because BTC is the biggest token or the biggest market cap crypto asset. That's why it's mimicking Total's market cap or market totals chart. So we are still overall bullish, as you can clearly see, impulse, correction, impulse, and we are currently within this correction. Even if you drop towards the 3.2 trillion as a market cap for total, we are still overall bullish. So even if BTC breaks below the 50 SMA, we are still above the 100 and the lower bound of the wedge pattern, we are still bullish, and we are currently in this correction phase. If you break below this structure, we can expect a deeper, if you want, bearish movement or more pain for the crypto market, but this would be a very interesting area to expect a nice, big, explosive bullish movement, which would be lining up perfectly with 100k support for BTC. But for now, at least, we are still above the structure, and BTC is still above the support zone, which would be the local support at 105k. So as long as we are above this area, we are still bullish medium term. Of course, we are bearish short term, and we are bearish and we are bullish long term. This is just a correction phase, even if you break below the structure. If you break above this high, which would be USDT dominance breaking below the 4.97%, and BTC breaking above its range, which we saw in the moving average daily, from a daily perspective, the range, right? After we crossed the 50 below the 100. So if you break above it, we'll be breaking above the range on BTC and below the low for USDT dominance. This is where the bullish movement would start. So that's it. Long story short, this is BTC chart. We are still bullish above the local support. Even if you break below this low, a major low, which would be on weekly time frame, we can still expect a crazy bullish movement from here. So, long story short, it's not the top yet. It's very early to judge. Yes, maybe we will be late. Some people are calling the top already early, but I prefer to be late than sorry. We can still have one big movement to catch, one big impulse movement to catch to make some profit before we finally call it the top. And usually November, December is a bullish month. After December or the last couple of weeks of December, banks will start to take profit, big institutions from their sheet and so on. Anyway, it's not happening yet, and we don't have this euphoria yet for big institutions to dump on newcomers or newbies, right? So let's take it step by step. Let's not panic. Let's not spread FUD and code at the top, at least for now, at least from a technical perspective and moving average perspective. Let me know what do you think in the comment. Is it the top? Are you still optimistic? Are you still DCAing? Which altcoins are you interested in? Maybe I'll cover it in the next video. And I'll see you hopefully on the next one.